It's super sad for smoke to show up on someone's door and say, okay, I'm ready to talk about this now. We had the first ever substantial smoke hitting Toronto. It was very widely reported. Tons of people, family and friends, people who weren't disinterested but weren't exactly engaged with the climate problem were reaching out saying, what's actually happening right now? Is this like the new normal? Yeah, Carbon Neutral Club, we're 2.5 years into our life cycle. I guess the root of our story as a team was, my co-founders and I come from backgrounds in technology. We were product managers, software engineers, working in agency environments for the most part. So we had clients, we were doing client work, and we were really intentful on finding opportunities to drive sustainable action forward within our relatively small companies, like sub 200 person companies. And it's hard, right? It was really hard to do that when you can't really visualize so clearly what the climate impact of a digital agency is. We were already quite remote back then. So it was hard to kind of get traction on that front. And then we had clients who were some of the biggest companies in the world building these billion-dollar strategies on how to decarbonize. And it was just so clear as day at that time. We looked at it and we thought, these are just pure top-down strategies. It's focused really scope 1, scope 2, our owned assets and our buildings, our manufacturing, and it doesn't really consider the decision making at a ground level, the individuals who make up these massive organizations. So we built Carbon Neutral Club. We launched it in 2021, and we are a climate-focused employee engagement platform. We help companies, big and small, take their climate objectives and engage their employees to take part in them. So employees, for context, get an opportunity to calculate their personal and their work-related scope 3 emissions. They, based on those emissions, their role in the company, they get offered a path of education and action and challenges and all these things they can do to progress their impact. And then along that journey, they're rewarded and incentivized with all kinds of things, but it all comes down to this fun points-based model. So that's where we're at. Really quick version of how we got here.
So maybe starting at a high level, and then we could kind of drill deeper too. Sometimes there are these big numbers and these dates that are thrown out there, and people are confused. Like, what are these big dates? What is 2050? What do these mean? Maybe can you enlighten us a little bit on, who sets those up and why are they important?
Great question. You hear 2050 a lot, and you hear 1.5 degrees a lot. And I let's pull the two apart. One is a deadline, one is a target. Two very different things. The concepts in general, they are selected, communicated by a group of non-partisan scientists, climate scientists. Let's just leave it at that for a layer of complexity. The 2050 targets, the most popularized for a really key reason. It's our biggest quote unquote near-term target. That's the moment at which we need to achieve a point of no net new carbon emissions added to the atmosphere. So every single year right now, we're adding more and more emissions.
We've made no dent in the curve right now.
No, it's exponential at this point. So the first objective is a point of drawdown where we start to see the curve start to turn downward, which we're not at yet. And then the second objective is to get to a point where no new emissions are being added year over year. So we're quite a ways away. The target is 2050, and it connects logically to a global average temperature warming of the 1.5 degree target. So we need to hold the Earth to a point of an average temperature increase of 1.5 degrees, which is pre-industrial time.
Which, by the way, look at the news right now. Record heat.
We're about there.
Death Valley, 131 degrees yesterday.
Yes. We were talking after the week's hottest week on record.
Yes.
The worst record for us to...
Room for improvement.
We have room for improvement, yes. We've actually seen very close to the 1.5 degree warming target already achieved, for lack of a better word. Yeah, we're on pace for pretty substantial warming, but we do see tremendous progress toward these key passive drawdown across consumer markets, across renewable energy, this great policy improvement happening in the States.
I think the good thing around climate is we're now in a stage where you can look out the window, and I think people are just, when I was a kid, we talked about these things at a high level, but I almost felt like we didn't have enough data, and you couldn't see it maybe as much as extreme. Like, I live in Washington, and August is the best time of year here, typically. And I'd say the last 6 years, we've had smoke every year. And that was never the case, ever growing up. And so I think people are paying more attention and saying, hey, some of the stuff that like Carl Sagan was talking about in the 80s and the 90s, like, wait, this is real. And so it's good to see, I think, the amount of people working on things like, like what your company's doing, and the amount of people that care, especially the younger generations, paying attention and saying, what are we doing about this? And I think hopefully that's a way to also get you into other organizations is like, hey, what is our strategy for this? And it's not acceptable anymore for people to just say, hey, this is not our problem. Everyone's got to play some hand in this.
It's super sad for that smoke to show up on someone's door and say, okay, I'm ready to talk about this now. But it's one of the tools that we're seeing to be quite effective in just mobilizing action. I live in Toronto, so East Coast, and we had the first ever substantial smoke hitting Toronto. It was very widely reported. Also hit New York, which we're very close to. And tons of people, family and friends, people who weren't disinterested but weren't exactly engaged with the climate problem, were reaching out saying, what's actually happening right now? Is this like the new normal? And it's kind of like, we have some work to do for sure if we want it to not be. So it's good action.
And I think that smoke, it also went across the Atlantic, right? Yeah.
I think in Europe. Yeah.
Yeah. That's often, sometimes around climate, some of the challenges are, oh, it's my problem or it's not my problem. But you realize that we're all in this floating orb together.